G'day, listeners. This episode is proudly brought to you by our major sponsor, supshq.com.au. Use code BENS15 at checkout to receive 15% off on your next purchase. What is going on, listeners? Welcome back to another episode of the Matter Mentality podcast. We're now into 4 weeks of live recordings or been in production. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you've listened so far, we do definitely appreciate it. And hopefully we are keeping up some exciting content for you. Now, over the last few weeks, we've been sort of diving a little bit more about, at this point of the conversation, been diving a little bit more back about me and kind of where this all started and where this all comes from, and kind of topics that I've experienced in my past, and things, ways in which that I use certain tools or skills to overcome these situations, experiences, how to progress through them, and things like that. Now, in this episode, I wanted to dive into something as I saw a bit of a stimulus into regards to this topic on Instagram, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I think I'm very right field of where most people stand on it when it comes to things like success and achievement and results and performance, and that is the word balance. Now, this is a pretty I want to say touchy subject. It's a bit of a sensitive subject. It's something that I think a lot of people misconceive or misunderstand, and they kind of get wrong in their attempts to seem, I want to say right, in order to seem acceptable, to seem part of the crowd. And I think it's very wrong. I think there's a lot wrong with it. And I think there's a lot wrong with the way we discuss it and the way we've been discussing it and the way we've been told to balance things. Now, for most of my life, things have always been sort of told that, we need to have balance, we need to have equilibrium, we need to have things in check. We need to, still have socialize. We still need to go out and see people. We still need to have relationships. We still need to have a work that, we clock off at 5 o'clock and that's the end of your day. We need to, be into fitness, but we need to be not too into fitness. We need to be into business, but not too into business. We need to be into our studies, but not that's all we do. And the thing is that always blows my mind when it comes to terminologies like this or conversations like this is the people dictating what is and isn't acceptable amounts of balance are often people not in the positions that we are attempting to reach. You will find that most people arguing or discussing these things like balance or how out of balance you are, or you're becoming too fixated, infatuated, obsessed, focused. They're often people not doing the things that we're attempting to achieve anyway or strive towards achieving. And it ends up becoming a bit of a, I find, spiteful comment. Now, people will often arbitrarily discuss their position or why they see that your level of, say, balance is wrong or how you're missing out on X, Y, Z, because from their perspective, it's lacking something that they do and therefore it's a problem. The other issue I see with this is when we discuss things like balance and people want to put their hand into the conversation and, put their hand up to be a part of it and sort of put their opinion or piece on what you're doing or what is the definitive criteria of balance and acceptable for balance, is that they are projecting onto you or onto the people that are less balanced, if we put that in quotation marks, a sense of a projection or insecurity around the fact that they are not willing to do the things or give up the things or sacrifice the things that those people trying to achieve big success or large degrees of success or greater degrees of success in business, training, health, fitness, study, whatever it is, they're not willing to do those things. And therefore they are projecting a perception of what is acceptable in regards to balance. And therefore it makes them feel better about themselves because, hey, if I know that this is normality and this person's not doing it, well, it's totally okay if I don't do it. And therefore the result that comes from that is not my fault because I'm still technically balanced and I am healthy and they aren't. So therefore I'm okay. The thing that blows my mind with this is something I've never been good at is, or that I've never done or been able to do, is balance things in relation to what other people think. So there's this weird idea that everyone else has the normality. Everyone else is the norm. Under the bell curve is the normal. But the thing is, every single person's definition of balance, every single person's definition of acceptability and activity is going to be subjectively different. And therefore, the whole idea of a projected criteria of balance is just wrong and misguided. We're not experiencing the same balance. We're not experiencing the same life, the same situation, the same desires, goals, outcomes. So how can we have the same definition of balance? This gets me when it comes to things like an example, if we really dive into, be myself, as this is kind of like the part of where I will often try and use an experience from my past. I don't do many things. I don't do a lot of things. I don't go out and do many things. I'm not a social person. I'm a very introverted person who loves helping people. I'm a very introverted person who loves learning, studying, building, growing, physically developing in every possible way I can. That takes away from the idea that I should have balance elsewhere. If we look at the wheel of life criteria that I know people have talked about many times, and you see a lot of gurus and life coaches try and dive into it, this weird notion that we need to have equal distribution around life, and around that circle, we need to have these different domains with equal distribution, is a complete fallacy when you're looking at people who are trying to achieve things. I've never been able to do it because I don't think that balance in this regard is acceptable if you're trying to achieve something bigger or greater or more than what you currently have. Because balance would imply that all things get the same amount of energy, the same amount of effort, the same amount of opportunity, and the same amount of interest. It's just not true. People that are doing these things or have this same degree or propensity of balance and interest in these different domains, if we look at it that way, are never excelling at any one thing. They are equally distributed amongst other things. They're equally distributed amongst those things. That's great. They may reach an average degree or mediocrity level or median level of acceptability or interest or reach or success. But that next level is never going to be achieved because they aren't willing to pull away from the areas in their life that will require that sacrifice, because that would immediately imply that balance is not achieved. And that to me is a misguided conception when you understand that for a period of time, the whole idea is not to have a balanced life forever. That doesn't make sense. What you're trying to do is be unbalanced for a very specific period of time, probably a long period of time, depending on the intensity and the degree and the magnitude of the goal that you have set and the thing that you are trying to achieve, the outcome you're trying to reach. You are going to be unbalanced. And the more unbalanced you likely are, the faster you're probably going to achieve that thing. Because then you're able to focus more energy, more time onto those specific outcomes and be able to knuckle down and do just a few things really, really well, versus someone who wants to have balance and spend their time equally distributed amongst their life and reach these different things and reach into different pockets and reach different domains of their life and try and keep them all happy and equal. It's not doable, and it doesn't make sense. And it's probably a bit of a ramble, but at the same time, like I've been involved with many people where they've chastised or questioned or criticized my lifestyle. And I guarantee there's people like me that have done the same thing. Yet I watch these people do the same thing over and over again, and they'll repeat the same activities, the same weeks, the same weekends, and then they'll, drink away the weekend. They'll complain about the experiences they've had. They'll complain about their week's work. They'll complain about the job they're at, but they still also want to be able to socialize on the weekend. They still want to be able to sink all the piss in the world on the weekends. They still want to be able to eat whatever food they want. They still want to be able to not have to study. They'd rather go out and sleep around. They'd rather go out and party than they would fixate and focus on their studies or progress and get an upskill in a certain area or realm they want to work in. That to me is looking at a short-term gratification or reward, and you are gambling the long-term benefit that can come from being unbalanced for a specific period of time. If you're able to narrow in, and let's say if we set up the wheel of life, you have relationships, you have social life, you have relationships, you have career, you have health, you have physical health, you have finances, you have I think there's like spiritual health. Now, the greater the degree of intensity towards a goal that you have set, or the greater the intensity of a goal that you have, the more sacrifices from those domains are going to have to be made in order to achieve that one thing or those particular things. Now, that isn't a bad thing, and I'm sick of the idea that this is something worth chastising or criticizing or saying is wrong, because that would imply that your perspective on someone else's life is correct and that person's life is wrong. Now, what they want and what you want can be two very different things. However, if we're trying to reach something significant or important, or you have a greater goal, whether it be physical development, whether it be training, you like a physique competition, whether it be business, whether it be education, career, whatever it is, relationships, family, eventually there is going to be a point in time in which a balanced wheel is not possible for you to excel to the next stage. And if you want to get to that point, then implying that you can have balance in all stages is just misguided and wrong. You're going to end up exhausted, burnt out, frustrated, because you're putting effort into everything and getting nowhere. And you only have, if we look at it really, you only have so many units. Whatever that unit may be, you only have so many units of a measurement to give to certain domains in your life. To give all those areas equal distribution is going to lead to unsuccessful or undeveloped areas of life, because you're committing all of your time equally amongst all of those domains, and none of them are going to excel. None of them are going to take off because you aren't committing all the energy to one particular thing. People that genuinely succeed at the thing they're trying to do are not doing 7 or 10 or 11 or 12 different things at once. They are focusing in and narrowing on specific domains in their life, in specific business areas, specific locations, specific training intensity, specific goal outcomes. They're focusing on very few things, and they are narrowing all of their energy and time into those particular things in order to excel them down the track. Now, there may come a time in the future by which you achieve those things. The balance can be redistributed later, where you have more energy, more resources, more capabilities to have a greater balance across those things, where you're not going to be stressed in your relationships because you've got a business now, or you're not going to be stressed in your business because you've got a relationship trying to take all your time from it. You're not going to be lacking behind in your studies because you're trying to have a social life and train and play sport and run a business and do all these other things. There's going to be periods of time where balance is just simply not possible. And anyone who's telling you the balance is the idea or the outcome of the goal is no different to me than people saying that happiness is the outcome or happiness is the goal. It's not. That's not a constructive, productive, or beneficial conversation to have with anyone, and it's simply just misguided misunderstanding. I've not exceeded faster in any area of my life than when I really narrowed down my focus and avoided the idea of something like balance. And even if we are to look at balance, my balance is subjectively going to be far different than someone who does enjoy things like social life and relationships and training and a little bit of activity and also business and also going out and partying. That balance is going to be far different than the balance to me, which is I'm balancing my scheduling and hours across business, across training, across comp prep, and across clients, and across training, and across business. That's really all I'm doing. It's really all the things I'm focusing on now. All those cross correlate because they're all interrelated to each other. The greater I study, the better my business, the more knowledge I have, the more skills I have, the better I can deliver to clients, the better I can train myself, the better I can program for myself, the better I can get results, and the better I can use that to help other people. All these things, though they seem like a lot, are interconnected, interrelated, and therefore I'm only focusing on 2 or 3 different things. Now, that to me is balance, because I feel fulfilled when I do it. I'm overly not exhausted at the end of the day. I have the energy to provide those things. Now, if I was to throw in other things like, oh, by the way, I also want to go out every single weekend. I also want to go and buy fancy cars and fancy equipment and fancy toys and fancy shoes. And I want to buy all these different things every single week. Financially, going to be unbalanced. Emotionally, I'm going to be unbalanced. Energy-wise, I'm going to be unbalanced. Relationally wise, I'm going to be completely unbalanced. Business-wise, I'm going to collapse. This is a detrimental mindset to have if you are looking at doing anything bigger than the simple 9 to 5. The second you want to take on something more grand, you want to take on something more specific, you want to take on something larger than yourself, you want to take on a bigger goal than something you've ever had, that idea of balance has to change. You don't get to have, it's literally a life, tangible, literal version of you can't have your cake and eat it too. You cannot have balance and have exceeding or excelling careers, business, physique, relationships, friends, being a parent, whatever it is that you're trying to excel in. Balance doesn't work that way. You cannot become Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Tiger Woods, Roger Federer, Andrew Johns. You can't become these people. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs. Not one of these people had a normal under the bell curve definition of balance to get to where they got to and to get to where they are and where they are now and where they're going to be. If we look at any one of them, and I've read a lot on all of them, none of them had a stereotypical balanced lifestyle whereby they were happy to also see friends and family, and they wanted to build relationships, and they wanted to go out and party, and they wanted to go out and do X, Y, Z. They wanted to also invest in this, and they also wanted to, take time away from their training. Not one of them did that. Yet, if you were to ask them, life was as balanced as it needed to be. It was exactly where it was supposed to be. It was doing exactly what they wanted to do. And that was enough for them because that was what they were trying to achieve. Now, there may come a time, and I'm sure Michael Jordan now, with all of his wealth, is going to be a lot more balanced now that he doesn't have to fixate on basketball, but he's got several businesses he runs. He's got several investments he takes care of. He's got shoe designs. He's got shoe contracts. He's got a whole brand to take care of. He's got appearances. He's got showcases. He's got award ceremonies. All these things still leave him to a degree unbalanced. He's probably not out as partying as much as what the general person is. He's not going out and living a lavish lifestyle as much as the next person when you consider that he's still busy and active and working. He's not putting his feet up doing nothing. This weird conception or this weird contextualization of balance being the idea or the dream or the outcome is completely ignorant of just how each individual person works and what they're trying to get out of life. The balance that I want is going to be far different to the balance someone else wants. And the greater my goal, the greater the intensity of my goal, the greater the things I'm trying to achieve, the less normal, the less stereotypical, the less under the bell curve balance I get to have. That is just simply the trade-off that we make when we look at mastering skills. We look at the funnel of mastery. We look at mastery as a passage of time. You don't get to balance things and excel. It is just not how life works. It's not how time works. It's not how skill development works. It's not how acquisition works. You don't get to have that normal life and those normal outings and social situations and all these things. As the greater your goal increases, that balance has to come down. And if it doesn't, it may, you better perceive it as a fact that the more you are able to commit unbalanced, you can dedicate time and energy to a specific goal with more intensity and absolute commitment, the faster the likelihood is of you achieving it. So every degree or every standard deviation away from that center where we're able to excel and give absolutely everything, every deviation away from that absolute giving is going to take us longer and longer to achieve the goal that we're trying to get to. So if you're not willing to make those sacrifices, you're not willing to give those things up, and you want to still achieve balance, you want to have friendships and social life and partying and going out and missing sleep and not studying and not upskilling, not developing, not training, whatever it is your goal is. If you're not willing to do those things consistently for specific periods of time that are likely going to interrupt the other domains you're trying to balance out, then you just have to accept the fact that the trade-off is you're going to take very, very, very long times to get there. Whereas someone else, perhaps myself, perhaps someone else, perhaps a Michael Jordan, perhaps an Elon Musk, they are going to get there faster because they're willing to keep an unbalanced lifestyle and make that gamble that the unenjoyment per se, if you even look at it that way, the unenjoyment that I have now is going to be worth the reward in the long term. And that is literally the gambling of the future. That's the Jordan Peterson talks about it all the time. We're gambling our future. When we look at delayed gratification, we're gambling the instant gratification, the instant pleasure with the long-term success, the long-term result, and the long-term reward. That requires unbalance. And if you're not willing to be unbalanced, then you can't really say that you're willing to make that trade-off, make that gamble, and get that response or get that reward, get that outcome. And that to me is a big problem when I look at, the comments I made all the time on my lifestyle around the fact that all I want to do is study, learn, build, train, and repeat. Now, my logic to that is, or my rebuttal to that is that the faster I get through the things that I'm trying to do, the faster I get those, the faster I get to helping people do more of what they want to do or achieve the things they're trying to achieve. It serves more people for me to be as focused as I possibly can be and be unbalanced and not have these normalcy lifestyles, because what I'm trying to do is something bigger than myself and greater than myself. And therefore the trade-off of enjoyment or instant gratification of things like socializing, social life, parties, going out, being drunk, hungover, doesn't incentivize me with any sort of reward other than a sense of frustration, disappointment, letdown, everything that comes from that I'm delaying helping people faster rather than working faster to get to helping people. That to me is why balance doesn't make sense. And it is inherently wrong for people to dictate what someone else's balance should be, especially when it's coming from the perception of someone who isn't doing the thing that you were trying to do, or hasn't done the thing you were trying to do, or simply hasn't got an idea of the thing you're trying to do. And therefore their definition of balance is based on the lifestyle they live, which they assume is the normal and under the bell curve and the acceptable. And if you aren't doing that, then you're deviating from the standard or deviating from the lifestyle or the roadmap or the standard projection. Anyone who is going to achieve something significant is going to deviate from the standard. And they're going to deviate from normal, and they're going to deviate from what is expected of the general herd. That is how it works. Nietzsche talks about it all the time. You just have to understand that some people are going to make comments on that, and they're going to try and persuade you that it's wrong or dangerous. It's pretty much to make them feel better. It is going to make them feel better about themselves, because what you are doing is going to challenge the idea that they could be doing something more than themselves and more than they're actually doing. And if they're not willing to make those trade-offs, then the likelihood is they're going to get the results that you're going to get. So to attack you or to challenge the idea challenge or push onto you the idea of the projection that their definition of balance is healthy and what you're doing is dangerous or unhealthy or obsessive is borderline an insecurity projection. It's a borderline narcissism. It's borderline arrogance. And it's why I feel these conversations are necessary, so that if you are someone trying to do something more important or something bigger or something greater or something grand that, you know, people say are crazy, is weird, is silly, is stupid, you can understand then that when they come to you with these things like terms like balance, or you need to be happy, you need to be balanced to be happy, there, though it's not intentionally negative, it's probably not intentionally wrong, I would argue that it is definitely going to be coming from a place of a lot more insecurity than they wish to admit, and is more of a reflection of them than it is the lifestyle that you live. And on that note is where I will leave this episode, as it is a little bit deeper and a little bit longer. So hopefully that is covering a little bit more about balance and kind of like, you know, how we go about doing things. Because let's be fair, I don't live a balanced lifestyle, and most people that are achieving things that I respect and that I praise are not balanced. And if they are balanced, it's because they work to be in a point where they could be balanced after years of unbalanced living. So that is just a bit of a wrap up on that, and kind of exploring a point that I heard on Instagram and have a pretty strong opinion about, as you could probably clearly tell. But yeah, if you have any other questions, guys, any other issues, any other conversations, any topics you want me to talk about, please reach out, message, DM, let me know, leave a comment, find me on Instagram. As you also know, coaching is still available and spots are open. So if you are looking to improve your physique, develop a lifestyle around the goals and the extreme intensities that you have, please do not hesitate to reach out, find the inquiry link on our website and message, get in touch. All right, guys, that's it for now. Have a great day, and I will talk to you in the next episode.